What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another video of Mr. Nightmares. And I hope everyone having a great day, a great time, or whatever time you're watching this. And be sure to subscribe to Mr. Nightmares for all his channels, all his videos. And this is Doordash, Postmates, or whatever case may be. And for a person who uses Doordash and Postmates, I use Doordash mostly. I never think of it negatively, meaning a stranger actually put my food. When I think about it, a stranger is actually delivering my food. But I don't think they. I'm not. I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt. So let's see what they got of these disturbing stories from DoorDash.
For a very brief 2 months, I worked as a delivery for the app Doordash. It was to make some quick money on the side on the weekends. I live in a suburb of Nevada, so deliveries are usually quick and close. Someone made a big order to a local burger joint, and I accepted the delivery. When the food was finished, I loaded it into my car and checked the destination on the app. It was a house across town in a cul-de-sac. I tended to drive quickly over the speed limit to get more deliveries out, aka get more money. When you drive like me, though, you're bound to get into some trouble once in a while. This time, as I was driving up the block towards the cul-de-sac, I saw the sickening glow of the blue and red lights in my rearview mirror. I pulled to the side and got written a ticket for more money than I'd possibly even make that night. It was a horrible feeling that I'd spent my night doing deliveries only to end up losing money.
Now you're only
Still,
waiting
I
up for
had to finish
gas.
this delivery,
I'm
albeit a
guessing.
bit late now. After the cop got back in his car, I drove right down towards the cul-de-sac. I got to the house, ran towards the front door, and knocked really hard since there was apparently no doorbell. As I waited for the door to open, I looked around this dark cul-de-sac. I say dark because there weren't any streetlights, only the small amount of light that was given off by the 3 total houses sitting on the street. It was a pretty unusual dead end. Not a nice looking spot by any means. The house wasn't exactly the prettiest either. The door finally opened, and an average height bald guy opened the door. He had a grayish beard with brown stains in the middle. His body language and way of behaving was immediately weird,
Like
screaming
always.
drunk or a drug addict. To top it all,
Always
his breath
something.
was awful as he said, "How you doing?" in his loud, obnoxious voice.
How you doing?
He told me to come in. I
I'm
told him
sorry.
no, it's okay, as I held out his bag of food, waiting for him to grab it so I could leave. He said, no, come in, I got something for you. I told him, really, it's okay, I need to be on my way.
What?
He said something along the lines of not being able to tip me through the app, so he'd have to give me some cash money. Against my better judgment,
You
I
pay.
entered the house with his food still in
You
my
get
hand.
the tip during the pay.
I heard a
That's
car
how it
pulling
works.
up into the cul-de-sac as I stepped inside. As soon as I cleared the door, the man slammed it shut and told me to follow him to the kitchen and to put the food on the table.
You crazy,
For
man.
some reason, even as uncomfortable as this guy made me, I followed him into his disgusting, messy, smelly kitchen. He went into his basement and told me to wait there in the kitchen. He shut the door, and I heard him stomping down his steps. I stood there feeling awkward, but also
Let me guess.
nervous.
You said you can come down and get the
There was a
tip.
short silence, and I stood there looking at my phone, texting a couple friends about what I was experiencing currently. Suddenly, there was a huge crash from down in the basement. It sounded like a big shelf holding a bunch of smaller items toppling over, followed by what was a scream for help. It seemed as though the man was hurt by whatever had fallen down. I ran to the basement door and opened it, and to my surprise looked down to see nothing but darkness.
He's obviously setting you
Not a
up.
single light was on. I called down into the basement, "You okay?" I heard the man moaning in apparent pain in the darkness below. I asked where the light switch was. Instead, he just kept saying, "Help." I used the flashlight on my Samsung to start walking down the noisy, creaky stairs. As I got maybe halfway down, the man's moaning sound stopped. It was completely silent. I stopped as I realized how silent it had grown and asked if he was still okay. There was no response. Suddenly, I got a really bad feeling in my gut. Something wasn't right. I heard a small cracking sound from in front of the steps, like a pebble being crushed against a concrete floor. Then there was a loud knocking at the front door upstairs. I turned and ran
Uh-oh.
upstairs to open it. It was
I'm
the cop
sorry
who
you
had
the
pulled me over about 5
cock-a-doodle-doos
minutes ago.
outside.
He was holding something familiar, two folded pieces of paper clipped together, asking me if it was mine. It was, and I grabbed it from him. But I also told him in obvious distress that I thought something strange was going on with this man who I just delivered food to. I told him it sounded like he got injured downstairs, but that it also seemed suspicious. I showed the cop to the basement door, and with his hand on his holster, he called down into the basement. I told him there wasn't a light switch, so he took out his flashlight and started walking down the stairs slowly. I waited at the top of the stairs as he progressed to the bottom step, then disappeared from my view. I didn't wait too long before hearing a commotion downstairs. The cop seemed to be yelling in response to being attacked. The commotion ended with a gunshot.
Oh, wow.
Then there were cries of pain, genuine cries this time. The cop called up to me to come help him get the guy upstairs. He asked me to hold the flashlight as he guided the man who was now cuffed up the stairs. All the while he was screaming in pain and at the cop. The cop brought him outside and called for an ambulance on his radio. He wanted me to stick around to sign a witness statement. I stuck around for about half an hour before I left and went home. Who would have thought the same cop who wrote me a ticket would potentially save my life 10 minutes later?
Oh, wow. First of all, flag number one. I know you don't judge a book by its cover, but seeing the way he looked, the way he talked, the two, he said he come inside for the tip because it didn't work. I know all that process. You can tip the person when you're actually paying the food. And number three, crying for help, going down the basement, major flag.
I occasionally do some deliveries for Postmates, usually late at night after work during the week or on weekends. I use my motorcycle as it allows me to get from point A to point B faster.
Okay.
I was delivering some Mexican food to a guy named Ron. It was a 15-minute drive from the burrito place to Ron's address. When I got to the listed address, I brought the food up the long driveway and up to the front door.
It's a nice house.
I rang the bell, and an older woman opened the door. I said delivery for Ronnie, but the woman looked confused and said, "There's no Ronnie here." I apologized and said I had the wrong house. So I went back to my bike and double-checked the app, making sure I was at the right house. And according to the app, I was. The house number was 15, just like listed on the app. I figured it was time to call this Ron guy to figure out if he had made a mistake with the address. I used the call feature on the app, but after one ring, it went to voicemail. So I tried texting instead, and within seconds he replied back. I told him the address he gave me was wrong, and he swiftly said, "Yeah, sorry about that." He explained that he didn't actually live here, but that he was chilling with his friend in the preserve across the street from the house listed on the delivery. He requested I come into the nature preserve by the fire and drop it off there. He mentioned he was sorry about this and was planning on leaving a generous tip. One time before, I did have someone request I drop off their food at a park near their house, so at that moment it didn't seem like the strangest thing in the world.
That's weird,
It was
though.
just a slight inconvenience, but one that he'd apparently make up for with the tip. The preserve was gated, but there happened to be an opening leading into it right across the street from the house. I followed the dirt trail until the light post ended, and any further I would be walking into complete darkness. I looked around for the light of the fire, and as a matter of fact, I did see a hint of light coming from the woods. I started making my way over into the increasing darkness of the woods, leaving the lit up area. As I got closer, I could confirm there was light from the fire. Why were they in the middle of the woods, though? The question of why they were expecting me to bring it to them out there started to ring in my head. I yelled out Ron's name a few times when I was within yelling distance of the fire. No answer. When I got close enough, I noticed something. There was no one sitting around that campfire. I asked myself, was that the right fire? But that was a silly question. How many fires could there be on a weeknight in the preserve? I walked a little closer to the fire and noticed a tent behind it. Maybe they were in there. So once again, I yelled Ron's name as I approached the tent. It was zipped up. I tapped on the tent and said Ron's name again. So I finally unzipped the tent and knelt down to look inside. I
Nothing.
saw someone laying down on their stomach, facing away from me, so that their shoes were only a few inches from my face. They seemed to be asleep. This was getting a bit ridiculous, so I just marked the order as delivered and turned ready to walk away.
Obviously a
I
setup.
didn't even make it a single step before noticing someone standing about 20 feet from me, between two big trees. He called out, "Are you alone?"
Uh-oh.
"No," I said. "My friend is just over there." The guy asked, "Why aren't you alone?"
Like a scary
I
movie.
said I do my deliveries with a partner. He asked, "Where's my food?" I was about to tell him I was in the tent, but I felt two hands grab both my legs and tried pulling me down. I looked down and saw the arms reaching out from the tent. Ron, presumably the guy who I was just talking to, started charging at me.
I told you.
With only maybe 5 seconds to act, I did manage to escape the grasp of the two hands and run past Ron, if that was even his real name. I don't think he chased me after I left the vicinity of the fire.
Mm-mm-mm.
I found my way back to the bike easily, and I drove off without taking a second to look back. I contacted Postmates customer service about it. They told me I should escalate it to the police, as there was nothing they could do. By the time they
Like
even responded
always.
with that, I didn't even feel up to going through with a police report. I just figured I'd let it go. I got lucky and I was unharmed. Still, it taught me one thing. If your instinct tells you to turn and walk away, do it.
I bet you if there's a black person out there, they'll be right on the case. I'm just kidding. Well, if someone is tell you to deliver food in a park, that's a major red flag. But on the other hand, some people might be going out camping and they might want to order food, So I can say both sides, but initially hearing it, it sounds fishy. So yeah.
For some reason, I never really used any of those food delivery apps until recently, after learning how convenient they are.
Mm-hmm.
One night after a late work shift, I didn't have time to make dinner, so I ordered some Chinese food off Postmates. It was originally estimated to be delivered in half an hour, but I waited a lot longer than that.
Mm.
Around the 45-minute mark is when I started getting impatient. I called the Postmate driver, and he picked up after a few rings. I asked him where he was. He asked, "Who is this?" I said, "Tracy, the girl he was delivering food for." There was a short silence. Then he said, "Oh yes, I'm on my way." So I thanked him and hung up. I sat in my living room with the TV on, and basically just played around on my phone, dying for the
I
Postmates
mean, it
driver
depends
to
where the
just show up
restaurant
already.
is.
Just
And you have to
then my
cook the
phone started
food. You
vibrating,
have to
and
find a
knowing that
person
it
to
was
deliver the
likely the
food.
Postmates driver calling me, I
And the
felt
person
very
has to
relieved
go
that the
to the
food was
place.
probably here at last. I picked up and waited for him to say something. I had to say hello like 4 times before he finally started speaking. He said he's outside. I didn't really know how to respond to that, so I said okay and then described my house to him. Then he said something weird. He asked me to come outside to get the food. I opened my front door to check if he was there. He wasn't.
Nah, baby, no.
I asked him where he
The
was as I
person
stepped out
that's
onto the
delivering
front
food
deck.
has to
There was another
go outside
pause.
the car and deliver your food
I
to you.
looked around my
Your
whole
food to
front
you.
yard and didn't see anyone. I told him I didn't see him. He said, "I see you." Again, I didn't know how to respond, but the way he said it was just so creepy. The last thing he said before I hung up
I
the
don't see
phone
you.
was, "You look
I
really
see you.
pretty." At that point, I went inside and slammed my door shut and
You
locked
look
it.
pretty.
I
What?
opened the Postmates
Is
app.
that what he
It
said?
said my food was delivered. I didn't know what was going on here, but I was growing increasingly uncomfortable. I
Who
shut off
wouldn't?
all the lights in my house and started looking out each window. I started with the living room windows. Didn't see anyone. Then I checked the dining room windows. Nothing. Next, the kitchen. Still no one. So I went down to our den, which was by the back door. I hadn't raised the curtain that morning because of work, so I pulled the string to raise it up, only a little bit, just enough to peek under to check the backyard. This whole time I was looking out windows. I don't think I actually expected to see someone, but when I looked under the curtain to the den window, I saw a man sitting in my back patio.
Uh-oh.
He wasn't on his phone, he wasn't doing anything.
He would look straight at
He
you.
was just sitting there, as if he were waiting for me. I lowered the curtain back down, and then my phone rang.
Like a scary movie.
I picked up, and he immediately said, "I just saw you at the window." All I said to him was, "I'm calling the cops," and I hung up. I went back to the living room and called the cops. The man on the phone
Oh,
said an
wow.
officer would be over shortly. After I hung up, my phone kept ringing. It was the man. I kept rejecting his calls, but he wouldn't stop. Sitting there waiting for the cops was one of the most tense moments of my life. Eventually there was a knock at the door, followed by a man shouting "police." I
Oh,
jumped off the couch and ran to open the door. I was confused to see not a man in a police uniform, but some man in some dirty street clothes who
whoop.
gave a disturbing smile as soon as we made eye contact.
Oh, wow.
He opened the storm door and tried to get in, but I pushed the front door hard enough to get it shut and lock it.
Good.
He didn't bang on the door, he didn't scream anything. I think he simply ran off.
She must not have a peephole.
A few minutes later, the actual police showed up, and they searched the property with me. We found the man's phone left on the table in the backyard. The background to the phone was a white guy with a blonde girl, presumably his girlfriend. I note this because the man who was on my stoop was not white, he was Hispanic.
Mm-mm-mm.
I did a little detective work with the cops and came to the conclusion that this man was not originally my Postmates driver, that he had stolen the driver's phone somehow mid-delivery. The police confiscated the phone and left after taking a report. As far as I know, that man never returned to my house, but this was easily the scariest experience of my life.
Wow. Whether you have your good days, have your bad days when it comes to delivery or anything in general. I don't know why these give they give these, I don't want to say platforms, creepers the opportunities to do whatever. I'm pretty sure there's a background check, all sorts of things like that. But me going through Doordash, there's nothing wrong with my food. It's normal. The only thing it's, how can I say, it's not that hot because it depends where I deliver it from. And yeah, so give it a big thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, all the great stuff. Until next time, peace.